Where are we going? A question we've answered in terms of literal motion of the solar system, philosophical metaphor, and now practical reality. We will be examining what the fall of three shields means for you, but like any good finale, we'll first take a look at where we've been. Macro-scale structure of the known universe, a dipole repeller at great point of attraction, with Earth and the local galaxy cluster in the middle heading through the great attractor pathway towards the finish line of a racetrack that may be familiar in shape to the human race. Our center cluster and sister system are highly symmetric and patterned with a common destination. On the galactic scale, we are relatively close in on the arms and orbit the center of the galaxy, dipping above and below the galactic plane, generally heading towards the region of Altair, south of Vega and Cygnus now. Within our arm, we are exiting a local magnetic dust cloud cocooning the system from the outside and into a void, the local bubble created by numerous ancient supernovae, leaving us more open to the energetic events of the galaxy and greater universe. As we exit the magnetic cloud, another magnetic shield, that of our sun, is dropping and expected to continue dropping in strength, allowing for record cosmic rays at the Earth system. As our local magnetosphere begins to fade, we are witnessing all three shields against space energy falling and painting an ominously energetic portrait of Earth's future. So what exactly are we talking about here? The most local events of concern would be massive solar eruptions, which we know are less common but still present in times of low activity. The only thing standing in the way of solar superstorms is our local magnetic field, and inductive explosions can cripple global power grids in a major event. Imagine no food at the store, no water from the tap, no heat or air conditioning or phone or ATM withdrawals or gas station pumps or way to call for help as the destruction and waiting we've set up across the world begins to do what they've warned us they could do when they lose power. But wait, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Before we can even think in terms like this, shouldn't we see some changes of the energetic nature on other planets? I mean, maybe if we saw record-breaking storms on Neptune at latitudes we've never seen before, or if we saw record-breaking storms on Uranus, something to say we're juicing up, or that 30-year clockwork storm on Saturn, arriving a decade early, like it did in 2010. Okay, well what about the clouds and storms on Jupiter? Surely we'd be seeing some kind of changes there as well. Mars doesn't do storms like Earth, but maybe if they were undergoing some kind of climate change. And what about Venus? Maybe if their fast winds were speeding up and getting faster or something like that. If this thing is starting to be a concern, we'll certainly see it on the other planets first. Well, since we mentioned storms, the ties in of academia of late are bringing solar forcing of hurricanes and typhoons out of the darkness, with numerous publications peer-reviewed in the last decade. These complement and often rightly outshine public tracking of these connections, as has been done by thousands of members of the public online, even inspiring a middle school science project on solar-triggered cyclones that won the state and then the national science championship. To get you acquainted with the concept of Earth without protection, let's go to NASA's Dr. Kong Papu Yen at our annual conference for laymen like you, explaining energetic effects that you might be able to apply here.
When you see solar flare, plasma, those are conductors. The real energy is surrounding that thing.
Dr. Yen brought video and a live setup with an externally affected pseudo-sun and pseudo-earth in electric connection, with an endpoint being an LED board that reacts as energy flow is in flux.
Now, how are we going to modulate this energy? So, of course, there are 4 different ways. One is to modulate the potential or the generator itself. So either through magnitudes or frequency. You see this change in frequency. Now it's down to 2.5 megahertz. The LED goes off. Now it goes back to 3 megahertz. And increased frequency again, it goes down. So there's an optimum frequency where everything just sustained and stabilized. It's like what we have for our solar system today. So everything is stabilized. And what we see is pretty much some kind of micro vibration. So now the sun not only have that, it has coronal mass ejection. So you have different plasma density moving around from the sphere of the transmitter side. And of course it affects the LED. Of course, there are coronal mass ejection moving toward the second sphere. You also see dimming on the other side. So there's 2 sides here. Sun, you can see that there are many different type of activities: CME, sunspots, solar flares, coronal holes, etc. On the Earth side, you see a fluctuation of ionosphere, Van radiation belt, change in the climates, change in tectonic plates, volcanic eruptions, all kind of things. So you look at two things. You look over here one time, you look over here the other time, and you keep repeating, and you start to see connections. Same thing here for abrupt climate change. If we charge the plate with negative charge, and we simulate cloud with dry ice, you see that the cloud can be modulated using charge from above with different potential. We need to understand that it's not just charged particle hitting something for something to happen. This is called induction. It's an action at a distance, such as copper. You see it become more abrupt. And of course, we see that the Earth contains ionosphere, which is highly conductive. So anything that actually causes modulation in the ionosphere translate to the ground level. So the way electric works is that you need to bring the potential between two plates of the capacitor lower enough to initiate such events. Such as this one, we have magnets in the bottom of the glass and connected to positive terminal, and you have negative terminals here. This thing is salt water, so it just helps you visualize how vortex form. And actually, water itself is like, it behaves like plasma. So it does conduct electricities and actually like to behave like this type things. Just like we see tornadoes, how that's formed. And this is called Thomson tornado theories. So this is pretty much just summing up everything about what we see here is that we see compression and expansion of layers of matters. And those layers contain charges. So you have electric field and magnetic fields going perpendicular to each other. But once there's some modulations in those layers, you start to see charge separate within the same layers. And of course, there's some kind of if charge separation here, if this plate represents the ground, the tectonic, when the stress building up on the tectonic during those times, earthquakes will occur. However, if there's high moisture contents in the atmosphere, energy has to go somewhere. So it starts to form vortex around the medium, which is called atmosphere. So you see different effects, which is tropical storm formations, more rains, cloud, like today's cloud. And of course, it becomes more of the weather effects than the earthquakes. So there are certain types and certain conditions actually building up this thing to become different type of natural disaster for a certain time. We don't do like one-to-one statistic. We have to understand the coupling mechanism and multiple cause and effects in order to do the correct type of statistic to tell what is real and what is not real, what is random and what is coincident. So we have to understand deep into the physics behind the mechanism, which this is how I understand it. So of course, same thing for earthquakes. We see that electric field modulation in the earthquake zone. We see lights and sound, cracking sounds, all this charge, like the Japan earthquakes or in Pakistan earthquake in 2013. And of course, there are something happened here. The new islands form like a round circle, like electrical discharge. When you put in a welding machine, it formed like a welding spot. Same for volcanic eruptions, charge building up, and of course, you see lightning.
It was recently discovered that cosmic rays increase the viscosity of silica-rich magma, which calls home many dangerous mountains on this planet. More energy of that sort should increase the activity of many of the world's volcanoes. Similar energetic interactions with the metal, water, and olivine in the mantle can trigger some of the world's worst and deadliest earthquakes and tsunamis. The specific solar triggering was discovered by Dr. Wu Yan and our community and then confirmed by a statistics professor from Ohio State. And as our shield, the only thing standing between us and the sun goes down, the earthquakes will be on the up as well. The cosmic rays coming from beyond the sun have been shown to juice up clouds, trigger hail nucleation, ionize and create lightning conditions, and contribute to the overall energy level of the atmosphere, and again, they penetrate through the crust. The answer to what our future holds as three shields fall at the same time is more electrical energy. The lack of density around the system dictates that more energy will be focused on the spheres that remain, and the weather, earthquakes, and volcanoes may soon resemble something out of an ancient story, like Ragnarok. There is also a growing amount of evidence regarding the biological danger of space radiation, even with a healthy magnetic shield. The direct effect and resulting magnetic fluctuation frequencies and electric currents induced have been shown to have significant effects on the cardiac system and on human psychology. One could argue that this is how rapid evolution occurs, but even if that's the case, the transition seems tumultuous at best, with one of the most benign periods of Earth's history potentially now on borrowed time.